Well, hello there, and it's about time I'm back with 5 things I've been up to lately. It seems like it's been forever. It seems like, well, I was completing all these things, it was taking forever, and I don't know why. I have had problems concentrating on reading lately. Either I fall asleep because it's at night and I like read 2 pages over and over again and then I go, fuck it. Or I just run out of time and don't have the time to read or whatever. So it took me a fair amount of time to get through these 5 things. But they're finally here, and we can finally talk about them. And before we do that, though, I'm wearing my Ice Monkeys jersey today. After the jersey I wore in my last video was the eventual champions, just the plain gray one with that title on it. So that was the first jersey of the team I was playing on after I got back home from graduating university and getting back to living in my hometown, and that was our first beer league hockey team jersey. But we eventually replaced those ones with the Ice Monkeys, which I preferred a lot more. So yeah, so that's what this is. So we're making our way through the jerseys. There's not many more hockey ones to go. There's a few more, but we'll get there one day if I can speed up my productivity. Anyways, first up, a book called Alien, Enemy of My Enemy. This was a 2023 release, and it takes place on a moon, a colony called Hygeia, I think it is, on this kind of moon in the outer rim. And the problem with this moon is that for some reason it's lost orbit or something like that, and it's only a matter of time before it crashes into the planet that it orbits, which is called Hephaestus. So because of this situation, there's basically very minimal people left on this moon in this colony, and they're kind of doing the work they were assigned to do before they assume that they're going to be taken off the planet by their respective companies before, you know, the planet collides with another planet and obliterates itself. But unfortunately, before they can be rescued, an incident occurs, and SOS, a distress call, is sent from this colony. Now, in this colony, there's 2 facilities. One is a Weyland-Yutani bio-warfare lab run by this sleazy doctor, and now I forget his name. I actually forget the name of, I think, all the characters. To be honest, yeah. This is the first thing I completed, so it's been a while, so I kind of forget the exact details. But anyways, also, outside of the Weyland-Yutani bio-warfare lab, there is a Seegson facility, a rival company to Weyland-Yutani, not as big. And theirs isn't, I don't think it's a bio-warfare, it's more of a normal kind of facility. They're probably just doing research or whatever. But a distress signal sent out from the Weyland-Yutani facility, because what they're doing is, and I think you would have seen this in Prometheus or whatever, but the black goo that is kind of an extract of the xenomorphs that can be used to, they basically, and this is what's going on in this book across the galaxy on Earth and stuff, this black goo substance is being dropped on places, and it turns any humans, wildlife, animal life into freakish xenomorph themed alien monsters. So that's kind of what they're doing at this research facility. And what we find out in the end is that as this distress signal is investigated by the Seegson staff, that, yeah, all sorts of weird shit was going on in this biowarfare lab, and they bred these, I think they were some sort of local wildlife, and they kind of bred them with the black goo, and they turned them into, they were trying to make these controllable, small alien life forms that they could use, of course, for warfare and all sorts of stuff. But naturally, that process went wrong, and all sorts of hell broke loose. And so what happens is this scientist that works in this lab, he actually has a queen impregnated in his chest, because he was also working on slowing down the gestation period of the aliens once they're inside of a human host, as well as some other stuff. So he volunteered himself to carry a queen, and because, you know, they're all about the queens, they have even more potential applications than a regular xenomorph does. So as this ragtag crew, there's some security forces. There's the doctor from this the Seegson lab. I think her name was Siobhan McCormick. I think I remember that name. She leads kind of the resistance along with these security people that she knows, and she has interests, romantic interests with one of them. She leads this resistance against whatever's going on. They don't exactly know at first, but eventually they find out there is, an alien problem, and eventually, once the alien bursts out of the main doctor's chest, they have to basically pit the growing queen alien against these smaller ones that were bred in this lab in order for them to try and escape. But of course, as the plot unfolds and whatever, there's complication after complication after complication. It's a typical alien movie, right? Like, you make a plan to do this, oh, suddenly something's fucked that up, so you got to adjust, right? So typical kind of alien story, but also kind of different. So I like it when they use the tried and true format behind the Aliens universe, but just do their own little twist on it, because the formula works just so fucking good, right? It's a good book. I recommend it. It's not as good as some of the other ones I've read, but still really good. And of course, worth the read if you're into the Alienverse like I am. Next up, another 2023 release, Firefly, Coup de Grace. I can't remember which number this is in the Firefly series. It's at least 6 or 7, I think. And in this one, Mal and the crew of Serenity head to a world called Able. Now, in Able, there is a young woman named, Annie Roberts. Almost forgot her name. She's the one who has contacted Mal because her father, Isaac, was shot dead in the street in the capital city of Able, which is called Yell City. And he was a lawyer, but he was a good guy. He would help anybody and ask for nothing in return if they didn't have the means to pay for it. And he was just a very well-known and well-liked guy across Able. And he's shot dead in the street one day by this miscreant. I forget his name, but everybody knows who did it, but nobody's doing anything about it, even the sheriff on Able. So Annie Roberts is like, well, I'll take matters into my own hands. She gets some advice on some buffoons to hire to try and off this guy, and Mal Reynolds, his name comes up, and soon Mal and the crew of Serenity are on Able. And as they talk to Annie and kind of accept the job and plan for the job, they start learning some other things. This goes a lot further than just one guy that Isaac pissed off shooting him dead in the street. This guy was given orders from somebody to kill Isaac Roberts, and we just don't know how deep this ring of corruption goes. So, the crew splits up. Simon and Inara go to the guild house posing as, well, Inara's not posing as anybody, she's Inara, the guild member, the companion, and Simon is posing as some rich guy, I forget his last name, Avery or Amory or something like that, who is looking to invest in Able. So they're trying to get the attention of Able's rich, powerful, influential people to try and figure out exactly what's going on Able, because there's more than just this murder that's kind of working its way into the mix. Shepherd Book and River are staying at Annie's farmhouse because River, as you know, is a bit of a wild card, and Book's going to take care of her and hold down the home front while everybody else goes out and does their thing. So that leaves the rest of them. There's 2 more parties. Wash and Kaylee go into Yell City looking for parts for Serenity because of course it took some damage or has a part wearing out, so they need to do some repairs on the ship. Meanwhile, Mal, Zoe, and who am I missing? Jane, go with Annie to track down this guy. I think his name is Billy or something like that. The guy that killed Annie's dad, and to get the vengeance that she is paying the crew for. But like I said, as things unfold, we realize this murder goes a lot deeper than just one guy being pissed off at somebody. There's a whole scheme behind it. And also what they find out is that there's a huge drought going on Able, which is causing all of the farmers to sell their land off and come to the city and try and get jobs. Basically, Able is a shit show. People are having problems making money, feeding their families. The planet is going all to hell. And what Inara and Simon pieced together is that this is being done on purpose by somebody. They just don't know why and who. So as the story unfolds and each kind of team that's out there from Serenity digs a little deeper into whatever area they're digging around in, the overall scheme of what's going on Able becomes a little clearer, and eventually Mal and his crew are like, okay, here's what we're going to do to finish this job off, right? So of course, a job that started as just getting simple vengeance on a murderer turns into basically righting the dire situation of a whole planet, sort of thing. So these Firefly books are super entertaining. They stick close to the theme and the feel and the vibe of the show. A lot of times on the back of the book covers, you'll see a quote from somebody saying, "Reads just like a lost episode from the show," and that's honestly what they do. It is like every book is like an hour-long episode of Firefly that you never got to see, sort of thing, you know. So, and in this book, it showed the cover for the one that's coming next. So I have put it on my wish list. Yes, I have. Next up. Not long after I moved into this place, I was lying on the couch on a Sunday with nothing to do, and I was like, oh, just flipping around on the TV, and I was on the Cartoon Network, and a certain movie came on, and I was like, this exists? What? And I was like, cancel all my plans, all my no plans. I got something to do. The movie I watched that day, what's it called exactly? It's called Scooby-Doo, The Wrestlemania Mystery. Or something like that anyways. I can't remember because I didn't download that picture before I started this video. And I just watched it on TV, so I don't have a hard copy to look at. So I hope I had the title right. I'll check this after and see if I'm right. But anyways, it's basically... just like in the old days when I was a kid in Scooby-Doo and the Harlem Globetrotters would be on every so often, Batman and Robin would be on every so often, they always had great partnerships on Scooby-Doo. And this direct-to-DVD movie from 2014 was another one right up my alley. So basically, in this film, Scooby and Shaggy are playing the latest WWE video game, and they manage to beat a certain match that is deemed to be impossible. And the reward they get for that is they get to all expense paid trip to WWE City to watch this year's WrestleMania. So naturally the two are thrilled, and they have to do some arm bending and some convincing to get the rest of Mystery Inc. to go along with them. So they go and they're loving it. There's quite a few wrestlers brought to life in this cartoon. There's The Miz, John Cena is probably the main one. Triple H shows up, Kane, and there's probably a couple more I'm forgetting. But there's a good sampling of actual WWE wrestlers, either at the time or beforehand, that get a cartoon treatment in this movie. And so Shaggy and Scooby are over the moon when they go to WWE City and meet everybody. They meet Cookie and Ruben, his son Ruben, who are the trainers for a lot of the superstars. And they settle into life in WWE City with no problem at all. However, chaos soon erupts when they learn that this beast called the Ghost Bear has been terrorizing the grounds around WWE City, and nobody has been able to bring this creature to heel, so to speak. So one night, Sin Cara, one of the wrestlers, who I don't think is real, I think he was a made-up guy. I don't remember. Maybe he is real, but I don't remember him at all. So he tells a story about how a century ago, a bear that used to wrestle called Vicious got beat by one of Sin Cara's ancestors in a wrestling match, and Vicious was so pissed off that he ravaged the land and was on a rampage until Sin Cara Grande, Sin Cara's ancestor, brought him down and banished him to a cave for all of eternity. However, apparently this ghost bear has gotten loose, and he's pissed, and he is terrorizing, like I said, the area around WWE's city, probably because they built this giant city on his former turf, and they're about to showcase a WrestleMania there. So the Bear is thought to be pissed, and that's why he's causing all these problems. Other problems erupt when Vince McMahon, he was in it. It was fantastic. Brought this new championship belt down to the ring and hung it above the ring, and it's got gold and jewels and all sorts of shit in it. And it's a vacant title because something happened with Kane's last match where he got his title rescinded or something. So the title's up for grabs. But then one night they have camera footage of Scooby-Doo stealing it in the middle of the night, but Velma debunks it, saying that he was hypnotized. And so hypnotized by the same moves that Scooby performed in order to win the video game, in order to get them to WWE City. So there's starting to be these little links between things that are happening. And Velma especially is starting to piece things together. So as the Ghost Bear continues to terrorize the place, they use WrestleMania, where Scooby and Shaggy haven't necessarily been let off the hook for Scooby stealing the belt. But Vince says, if you two can combine and beat Kane at WrestleMania, you're off the hook. You're innocent. You're free to go. So they're training for this match with Kane, and then they eventually, Mr. Ink decides, a lot of people are saying you should shut down WrestleMania. The Ghost Bear is crazy. It's going to be a bad scene, whatever. And then Mr. Ink and Fred are like, you know what? We could use WrestleMania as the perfect situation to flush this Ghost Bear out and set a trap for him. So in typical Scooby-Doo fashion, they do such a thing, and they catch the Ghost Bear and they reveal who it is. And I'm not going to tell you though, because that's the best part of the whole Scooby-Doo format, is seeing who exactly is under that mask at the end. So great movie. I used to get all the Scooby-Doo animated videos on DVD when James was a lot younger, because he really liked Scooby-Doo, and I've always loved Scooby-Doo. So we used to watch those movies like crazy. We've got a whole pile of them. So that's why I'm surprised I never saw that WWE one, because I would have been all over that. But so this one is just exactly consistent with all the other ones. It's a perfect Scooby-Doo experience, and I'm just so happy they did something with wrestling, because it's so fun to see two things you love put together into some amazing piece of art, right? So really enjoyed that movie. Now, we're going to finish this video off with two video games, both of which were downloads. One I purchased on the Nintendo Switch, and the other one was a free download on the PS4 for the PS Plus monthly games. We'll talk about the one on the Switch first. Really neat game, and it is called 1980’s. That's right, 1980’s. We don't know exactly what year this is in. It could be any year in the 80s. Anyways, it's a really moody kind of game. Really dark and kind of fucking sinister, dreary. It makes you think of rain when you kind of get the vibe of this game at the start. So it focuses on this young kid who... he's doing like a narrative voiceover about, as a kid, I was really happy, playing and whatever in our neighborhood and in my house and blah, blah, blah. But as I got older and became a teenager, like, life really had no meaning. Like, is this all there is to life? Trapped in suburbia, blah, 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 And then he tells a story about how one night he went out for a walk in the middle of the night downtown, and he found this old factory that had been abandoned years ago. But inside of it, he went in and there was this arcade. And he was like, I wonder if there's going to be people like me in here. So he kind of found his meaning in life through this arcade and through playing video games. Now, the cool part of this game is that as he's doing this narrative, part of it's cutscenes, but then it melds its way into one of the game levels. And the game level kind of suits whatever kind of theme he's talking about at the time. And it all harkens back to old, like, 1980s arcade style gaming. So it's a very short game, unfortunately. That's its only downside. And this game was from 2019, I think. So it's not brand new. It's been around for a few years. But again, I'd never heard of it, and it's something that was right up my alley. So I'm slipping in my old age. Fuck. Anyways, as he tells this story, it melds into each game level, and each game level is very different from the other, and focuses, like I said, on our 80s arcade style gaming action. So the first one is just like a side-scrolling beat 'em up through like a subway station and shit. It makes you think of like Double Dragon, Bad Dudes, that sort of thing. And then there's one where it's one of the horizontal side-scrolling space games, like kind of like Defender or Zaxxon. Not Zaxxon. What was the other one? Oh fuck, I can't remember the other one. But you're a spaceship just flying along to the right, and you've got to go up and down and back and forth and shoot everything, sort of thing, right? So one of those classic scrolling space shooters. Then there's one that's like an arcade racing kind of game, very similar to Pole Position from the 80s. Very simple. Just turn the car as the road goes that way and then goes back that way. You just make sure you stay in the lanes and you avoid the other cars, sort of thing. Very similar style to that, the racing one. Then the next one was like a ninja kind of adventure, hearkening to like the Shinobi kind of series, which was always very popular. And then I think it's the last level of the game. It's like an RPG where you're inside of this kind of grid-like area and you have to go down hallways, and then an enemy spawns, and then you have to take turns whacking each other, and you have to defeat these 3 dragons to get out of that. And that's kind of the last level of the game where the game ends off. But as the game finishes, we see the kid outside the arcade, and all of the various elements of each game style start appearing. Like a car appears suddenly beside him, and then a dragon, sort of thing. And he says it's not over. So they definitely left this game open for a future installment. Now, like I said, this game was released in 2019, and it's almost 2025, so I'm assuming they're not going to release a sequel if we haven't seen one yet, unless there is one and I just haven't seen it. But I thought this was a very, very neat idea for a game. Just the way, the moodiness of the game, and then his narrative and how it blended right into the gameplay, and all the gameplay and all the stuff he was talking about was all so 80s arcadish subject and stuff. It was just right up my alley. Like, I'm so nostalgic, as you may have been able to tell by now. The 80s and the 90s I hold very dear. There was lots of people talk shit about the 80s especially, and the 90s a bit too. But all I remember from those decades was just straight up awesome, fun, good vibes times, you know. And I'll forever love those decades. They're way better than where we're at right now. So yeah, naturally a game like this is right up my alley. So I loved it, and I hope they do make a sequel, because I will get it right away. Last up, the game that I downloaded on my PS4 from one of my free monthly PS Plus games. This game was released in 2020, I believe, and it is called Dirt 5. I had heard of the Dirt games before, but I had never played one, so when I got this 5th installment for free, I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Basically, it's a racing game that focuses on off-road driving. There's a few modes, like a quick play mode and a whatever, but the main mode of the game is the career mode, where you basically are this new racer on the circuit, and this guy named AJ kind of takes you under his wing and kind of mentors you through your start of your career and through all your races. And he's always talking, and he has a podcast that he does. So whenever you're on the menus and stuff like that, there's always this commentary from him, interviewing other racers or talking about just news from the racing circuit and stuff like that. And then the other character involved is this guy named Bruno Durand, who is basically your kind of the champ and your biggest competition. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Sunday, I'm tired. So everybody knows that you're the hot rookie on the scene, and it's eventually going to come down to a showdown between you and Bruno. So he gets interviewed sometimes, and he talks trash and jokes around and stuff like that. So basically, as you go through this career mode, you do this sequence of events, and then before you move on to the next bracket, and you keep going and going and going. And I think there's, God, I don't know how many events there are, but there's a lot. It takes quite a while to get through all the events in this game. And eventually it all leads towards, if you have success enough along the way, it leads to, of course, obviously a showdown with Bruno Durand. And you even get to race AJ in the end as well for fun. But that's kind of what this game is all about. And as you move along, you gain credits and XP and all sorts of stuff during your races, which help you unlock and then purchase extra cars. Certain types of cars can only be used in certain types of events. So you want to make sure you save up and then purchase, like each car has different capabilities and ratings. So you want to make sure you save up and buy the car or 2 or 3 cars that have the best ratings for each category so that you can bring the best vehicle out there onto the track with you and hopefully win as much as possible. So that's probably the biggest aspect of the game outside of the actual racing, is just buying all these cars and managing them and making sure you've got the best equipment available to you. And in terms of the events, there's a few different ones. Most of it is just racing on a dirt track in various locations around the world. Like there's Brazil, Italy, Morocco, Arizona, New York, and a bunch of other ones as well. And most of them are dirt track racing. Some of them are actually the sprint dirt track racing with the cars that are kind of tilted with the big wheel on one side. You can do that. Some of them are ice racing specific. And then there's one event where you don't race against anybody else. You basically get this dune buggy and you have to make your way through this really technical type of track in a certain amount of time without fucking up too much. So there's different event types that are scattered throughout career mode as you go through that you have to become familiar with and get comfortable with. But yeah, like I said, you just make your way through career mode and face Bruno in the end, and you've beaten the game. So I like the game, but I didn't love it. And I think because if you've watched a lot of my reviews over the years, I have played a lot of racing games. Gran Turismo and the Need for Speed series, those are 2 of my favorites. But then there's other ones as well, more one-offs or lesser series that I don't like quite as much as those 2. But I'm always playing racing games. I love racing games. I always have since I was a kid. I remember playing pole position on the Commodore 64 as a kid, and just loving that game. And ever since I played that, like I've been hooked on racing games. Graduated to like Top Gear on Super Nintendo and RC Pro-Am on NES, all these different types of racing games. And then remember in the arcades, Cruising USA with the wheel and shit. Like I've always loved racing games. But in this case, I like racing games that are on race tracks. Dirt road racing and off-road racing don't hold even close to the amount of appeal for me that track racing does. So as much as I did enjoy the game and it was well executed, it was a good looking game, easy to play, it just, off-road racing isn't my jam. I do like it, but like I will play an off-road racing game once in a blue moon, just every once in a while after I haven't played one for a while. Whereas with track racing like Turismo and Need for Speed and stuff, I could play those. I could have one on the go all the time, and I'd be like a pig in shit. So if you like racing games and don't mind dirt track racing, you would probably enjoy this game very much. But yeah, since it was free, hey, you can't beat it, right? For free. Meh. Anyways, that is the 5 things I've been up to over the last couple months maybe. And needless to say, of course, I'm always working on the next batch. And I even have the first item of the next batch finished and in the bag. And I will continue to work hard for you to get those other 4 done ASAP. Have a great week.
Meow.